Many people have had a similar experience. When you're practicing spiritual or self-cultivation methods, whether breathing practices, meditation, Qigong, or yoga, your state often feels quite good. Your breathing is steady, your mind is calm, your body feels relaxed, sometimes even clear and light. In those moments, you may think, everything seems to be on the right track. But the problem usually doesn't appear during the practice. It appears after the practice ends. Once you return to daily life, when tasks increase, the pace quickens, and the pressure arises, you notice that your breathing becomes shallow, tight, and rushed again. The stability you experience during practice does not naturally carry over into daily life. Among our students, this pattern is extremely common in their past training experiences, regardless of what methods they practice or how long they have been practicing. This phenomenon keeps repeating. Practice works in isolation, but breaks once life resumes. As a result, most people begin to turn inward and question themselves. Have I not practiced long enough? Am I not focused enough? Have I failed to grasp the key points? Did I choose the wrong method? Well, interestingly, in teaching, we have found that those who are more serious, disciplined, and committed are often more likely to get stuck here because they're already capable of entering relatively good states during practice. They fail to notice something crucial. A good state does not necessarily mean the system has changed. Before we go further, one clarification is necessary. The distinctions we're about to discuss come from long-term observation within Daoist embodied cultivation systems, not from the modern psychological framework of emotional regulation. In Daoist cultivation, the question of whether breathing can truly change a person has been examined over 2,000 years. In the Zhuangzi, there's a well-known lines. The true persons breathe with their heels, ordinary people breathe with the throat. This statement is not describing a single mystical experience. It is pointing to a very concrete distinction. In Daoist cultivation, especially in breath training, what changes is the way breathing participates in the overall functioning of the body and mind. More broadly, the depth and structure of breathing determine whether a person could remain grounded under pressure and change, or whether they are immediately carried away by circumstances. Let us return to the phenomenon described above. When calm during practice repeatedly disconnects from daily life, most people naturally respond in two ways. First, they try harder. They practice longer, more frequently, or more strictly. Or second, they keep changing methods. They hope the next method will finally solve the problem. But through long-term teaching and observation, we have found that in many cases, the issue is not effort, nor is it whether a method is advanced enough. Rather, it lies here. You may be using state adjustment practices while expecting structural change to appear in daily life. To understand this, we need to clarify what we mean by state and structure. A state refers to how you feel during practice, but it is not something that can be directly controlled. From a structural perspective, your state is the result of interaction between two dynamic systems. The first is the internal system. This includes material factors such as hormone levels, blood pressure, and nervous system activation and inhabitation. It also includes energetic and somatic patterns, which are long-form tension habits and reactive tendencies. All of these eventually manifest as your subjective experience of mood, emotional tone, and mental state. The second is the external system. This includes your physical environment, noise level, pace, sensory stimulation, as well as your social environments, relationships, role expectations, social pressures, and cultural context. What you experience as state during practice is simply the outcome of how these two systems interact under specific conditions. This explains a very common phenomenon in most spiritual practices. People feel calm during practice, but become unsettled again when returning to daily life for reasons that are not complicated. First, many practices require withdrawing from social environments and entering quieter, lower stimulation setting. This alone significantly reduces external system consumptions. When consumption drops, states naturally improve. But once you return to a complex, noisy environment, external pressure re-enters and the state quickly reverts. Second, most methods are designed with state adjustment as their primary goal. They aim to temporarily reduce tension within the internal system during practice. This can be effective in the short term. The problem is that the structure of the internal system itself has not changed. So once daily life resumes, the system continues operating as before. A simple analogy may help. If a company is chronically understaffed in its cleaning department, garbage will accumulate as long as operation continues. Taking a holiday or shutting down work will temporarily clean the office. Having employees clean together can also improve things briefly. But once company resume normal operation, if cleaning capacity itself has not increased, disorder will return before long. The issue is not whether cleaning occurred, it is the structure of the operating system. This reflects a fundamental Daoist perspective. In Daoist thinking, effective change is never achieved by struggling at the level of the results. It comes from adjusting the structure of the system itself. This is the deeper meaning of Wu Wei. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means not opposing outcome at the same level where they arises. When the system is upgraded, when inflow and carrying capacity change, secondary states and results naturally transform through everyday operation. When viewed from this perspective, many long-standing contradictions begin to clarify. You may realize that the issue is not whether you practice, nor whether you have awareness. Rather, it is this: does your practice truly reach the system level? In teaching, we often see the following situation. Many students can clearly experience calm and relaxation during practice. Some even have strong awareness of emotional changes. But once they enter real-life scenarios, when roles, responsibilities, and relationship activates, the body and breathing quickly return to the old reaction patterns. This is not because they have regressed, nor because their practice has stopped working. It is because their training was not oriented towards structural upgrading as its primary goal. As a result, the internal system did not undergo change at the necessary level and therefore cannot operate differently under pressure. At this stage, many students experience a subtle fusion. On the one hand, they clearly feel that the practice has brought a real change. On the other hand, they must admit that these changes struggle to stand within reality. If you're at this stage, the question you face is often not, should I try harder? It is a more fundamental judgment. Do you need to continue stacking experiences, or is it time to begin building a structure that can be carried long term? This judgment does not need to be made immediately. Different stages require different entry points. In some phases, states and experiences are necessary. But if you have practiced for some time and have begun to see clearly that the recurring issue is not feeling good enough, but rather everything breaks once life resumes, then one question deserves serious attention. Does your spiritual practice have the capacity to enter daily life, to enter pressure, and to enter relationships? In another video, we discuss more systematically how Daoist cultivation approaches breath training and long-term change from a structural perspective. There, I also explain more clearly who may benefit from beginning at this level and who may not need this path at the moment. You do not need to rush, you do not need to take sides. If this question has begun to feel real, no longer abstract, then that itself marks an important turning point.